$17,000 to create a character model? Really? Am I serious? Absolutely. Absolutely. Welcome to another Ask a Dev Dev Thoughts chat. And today what we're really actually going to be talking about is the whole idea of how much does blank cost? And we're going to be talking about this from a couple different perspectives. I'm basically going to be offering you all a framework on how you might figure this out. And I'm going to provide some context that may actually help you with these kinds of thoughts and thinking exercises. We're going to be working at this from 3 different discipline angles. We're going to be talking about this from a character art perspective, an engineering perspective, and lightly from an animation perspective. And we're going to talk about 2 different frameworks. The first one is going to be the opportunity cost framework, and the second one is going to be job research framework. So I'll get into that in a second. But it's worth talking about why we're doing this. And there's really 2 coins to the why and one sort of motivation. What I have found is in various chats throughout the community, working with different people, just over my career in general, it's quite often that people have no idea how much it costs to build this stuff. And especially if you're new to game dev, much the same way as you're new to the understanding of the daunting task of shipping your own game, you have no frame of reference for how much it costs to build a character or create an animation or hire an engineer. And so that's one coin that we're talking about. And at the same time, on the flip side of the coin, which is actually pretty interesting for people who maybe want to get into games, is you have no idea how much you can make chasing your dream job making games. So that's one coin. The second coin that we're going to talk about is a different conversation that comes up every now and then. It's generally along the lines of people are pretty aghast at how much it costs, or having to pay $200 to build a model that they bought on Fiverr, not understanding the full context of what goes into this and any other frame of reference to work from. So we're going to be talking about those 2 different coins as we go. Now let's break down the opportunity cost one to begin with. So the way we're going to work through the opportunity cost perspective is we're going to use ourselves as a frame of reference. We're going to talk about how much you potentially get paid, how long would it take you to do that task, and then we're going to back into what it might cost us to build or create or animate or engineer that thing together. And that will give us a rough gut check of the opportunity cost. And then there's also a factor that we're not going to be able to get in there, which is the wisdom of experience that the people hopefully you're hiring have, that contributes to how long it's potentially going to take you to do the animation at the quality bar that I believe you are probably imagining in your brain. So the opportunity cost is one of them. The second one is the industry job posting experience. So let's talk about the industry cost, or the opportunity cost one first. Here we go. So right here, what we have is the latest average salary by state according to Forbes in 2024. And I don't want to belabor this. I don't want to go into this too much. We just really kind of need a frame of reference. I'm not even going to really worry about state. You can kind of look up this information on your own. The big key thing that I want to key in on here is the average annual salary nationwide being $59,428 in 2024. What's important about this is just remember that the hourly rate of $28.34. That is what I'm going to use as the cost basis for our opportunity cost. Why am I using that number? I'm using that number because what I found in a lot of cases is people who are joining the community, starting out in games, they don't all come from high-tech position jobs. These are people who are working in all kinds of various degrees of jobs and job levels all throughout, not only just the US, but the world. So I'm really kind of taking this as a baseline, this $28.34, but I want to be clear, generally speaking, when you're working with more of the high-tech jobs, this number is actually quite a bit higher. So you can take that with however you want, just even looking at, and also depends on where you live. Let's just take a look at California. California's the average salary, not even including white collar, blue collar, everything mixed together, $73,220. That already bumps this up a good chunk as well. So just keep in mind for the opportunity cost, when I reference that later on, we're looking at the $28.34. So now let's talk about the second method. Now, the second method, I basically coined or called it basically the job search posting. Now, what I want to point out with the job search posting is there has been a large movement, or not large, there's been at least some movement to actually posting job transparency in salary ranges. And several states have already passed laws that require there to be salary range transparency in those states. So if we take a look at a map of what we got going on, we can see this is as of 2024, I believe. I'm not sure when this is, but ballpark it. Let's just say this is March of 2023. Okay, so roughly speaking, Washington, California, Nevada, Colorado, New York, Connecticut, Maryland, all will require transparency in salary ranges. And at the time, all these other blue states, these light blue states, were considering whether or not they should pass similar laws. What that means for us is, if we want to know what a person makes working in a job within those states, we can look it up now. We couldn't do this before. So let's just take a look at our friends over at Epic Games. So this is Epic Games. But the trick is, you have to do, if we do a search, let's just go through this. Let's go Epic Games jobs. If we do a search for Epic Games jobs, we pick on the Epic Games website, and then we come down and we look for art. I'm going with art because it's what I'm most familiar with. Now there's a lot of jobs here. However, what's important is we have to pick a job in one of those locations. Because when we do that, if we go state region for location here, let's go country. I can't click. Country, United States, state region. Let's just go California. Okay, so there's only 2 jobs that we can work from in California. That's okay. This isn't even in our 3 disciplines that we're talking about, but this will get the point across. So let's take a look at a senior concept artist in vehicles, for example. Now, when we take a look at that, we click on that. Yes, we have all of our usual job descriptions, but somewhere in here, there is a required line in these states for California, in this case, California base pay range, $155,111 to $227,495. This is an awesome research tool for us. Not only, we can actually use this for a lot of things, but we're basically going to be using this to back into potentially what something might cost if we were to hire a professional at a certain level, based on our estimates as far as certain disciplines take for example, creating an animation, doing an engineering task, or creating a character model. So before we hop into our first example, let's talk about one other thing that I think is worth mentioning now that you know about the salary range transparency. And I'm sure this is going to be a spicy topic in a lot of ways, maybe, hopefully not. The goal of this is to help you all out, but whenever you talk about money, things get spicy. It's also important to note all of the numbers we're going to be talking about today. It is November 1st of 2024. The numbers we're going to be putting up are going to be from 2024. And depending on when you're watching this video, laws may have changed, debasement may have happened, so the numbers might be different, but the general principles of what we're applying should be the same. So the 2 other things that I would offer about what I've just shown you with salary transparency is this. 1, how much are you worth? So you're in a job, and it used to be that you didn't know, there was no way for you to know what your value was based on what you've learned in the last year or 2 years on the job around the industry. The only way for you to find that out was to go out, pound pavement, send your demo reel, send your resume, which was its own risk at the time, back in the day type thing. And you would basically get job offers. And then with those job offers, you may or may not have to play the game of whether or not you're going to, tell your current employer that you have a job offer, and how are they going to react? You don't know. That's a whole other conversation. I can do a video on my strategies for those conversations in a separate talk. But the point is, you had to go out and do all that research by actually applying for positions. Well, now you can get a pretty quick gut check where you're working, what you're making relative to what is out there. Now, not everybody is hiring your job position all the time. So I regularly check this information across different companies just to see how things are trending. That's one thing. The other one that I want to call out here is recruiters. So I found myself on a lot of calls with recruiters who are either new to the business or don't have a full understanding of this, and they don't know this. Okay, so this is kind of a call out for recruiters. Like, dude, this is your craft. I'm happy to help teach you all about this, but the fact that you call somebody and you don't know the salary ranges at the company they're working at and it's listed, it's kind of the same thing as applying for a job and never even looking at the company's values or playing their free-to-play game or any number of things. So come on, recruiters, help me out here. Let's level up a little bit and do that. And also keep in mind, these are ranges. These are generally base pay ranges. So I've basically taken averages throughout all of the talking points that we have today. So with all that context and all that to chew on, let's go ahead and hop into our first example where we're going to be talking about what might it cost, or how do we figure out how much to pay in order to create a character model. Here we go. All right, what do I pay a character artist? Let's go. So first, let's talk about the context. All right, we're going to be talking about the context, generally speaking, of creating a hero character, non-photo real. Now, where are my numbers coming from? So part of it is from being in this business for 30 years, just watching how long it takes to build characters in various aspects of the pipeline. Another part of it is I actually ran my own company for 4 years where I had to pay these numbers. I had to hire the artists. I had to deal with the timelines, deal with the bid days, deal with the overage, pay the bills, all those kinds of things. So for example, the dragon that we used in the pet series, I know roughly speaking that was about a $10,000 dragon. By the time I finished paying the concept artist, paying the modeler, paying the texture artist, etc., that dragon ended up being quite expensive. So that's just a frame of reference. So I do have specific experience on various levels with this. I also, as a sanity check, had a chat with a couple of character artists who are just amazing in their craft, just to make sure I wasn't completely off base. But as always, comments are welcome down below if you have different number of hours and you have all kinds of other caveats. Light it up. Let's go. I told you this might be spicy. So we're modeling a hero character, non-photo real. This includes the modeling, the textures, the UV, the retopo, everything to get it ready to go into rigging. This does not include the concept. Okay? So if we look up online a bunch of different positions, let's talk about it. So first position, Sony character artist, $114,000 a year, average $54 an hour, right? Riot Games Principal 3D character artist, $189,000 a year, $90.86 an hour. Blizzard Principal 3D artist, $166,000 a year, $79.80 an hour. Senior character artist at EA, $100,000 a year, $48 an hour. Character artist at Blizzard, $61,000 a year, $29.32 an hour. Ember Lab senior character artist, $130,000 a year, $62.50 an hour. Senior character artist at Blizzard, $118,000 a year, $56.73 an hour, and a senior character artist at Disney, $105,000 a year, or $50.48 an hour. Now, what's important to note about this is I took the ranges, took the midpoint, that's where that number came from. You can do your own research on this. You can look up your own job postings and run these numbers however you like. So how does this apply for us? Generally speaking, the range to build a character was somewhere between 4 and 10 weeks, depending on complexity, depending on all these things. So if you take 4 to 10 weeks, let's just go with 8 weeks. 8 weeks is 320 hours, working 40 hours a week. With those numbers, at $54 an hour, basically, if you just rifle down the list, let me just throw it up here. You can see we got 17,000, 29,000, 25,000, 15,000, 9,000, 20, 18, 16. These are all the numbers for what it would cost for each of those artists at that studio to actually build this character for us. Now, generally speaking, you're going to have to decide who you're going to work with, what quality bar you're going to work with. So we probably are not going to work with principal artists in this particular case. Maybe we're hoping to get senior level talent because of their experience, the speed at which they can do things, the quality of the craft, etc. Or a very ambitious and just up and coming superstar of a mid-level character artist. So let's throw out the principals. Let's throw out the non-seniors and let's just go with an average of the seniors. If we take that average, that's where we come up with, for a hero character at 8 weeks or 320 hours, $17,698. I'm not crazy. These numbers are huge. So when I hear somebody say something like, I can't believe it cost me $200 for this model on Fiverr. I'd like to offer this as a frame of reference for you, okay? And once again, this varies a lot. These are all US based salaries, and it depends greatly on where you are, experience levels, and all those kinds of things. Now, if you recall, one of the numbers that we had was our $28.34 for us to do it. So what does that work out to be? If we go $28.34 times 320 hours, that is our $9,068.80 if we were to do it. Going on average, I don't know what your time is worth. You know better than I do. However, just taking a ballpark average of the salaries in the US, at the lower end, not industry professionals, you're looking at somewhere around $9K for your own personal opportunity cost to do this if you can achieve the quality bar you're going for in 320 hours. Now remember, 320 hours is 8 solid weeks of work. Why am I talking about opportunity cost? I'm talking about opportunity cost because you have to understand, any time you spend doing anything is time that you're not doing something else. And so you're going to have to figure out how to prioritize that. Now, looking at these staggering numbers, you might be thinking, oh my goodness, how am I even going to make this game? And this gets us to another quick little point that is worth mentioning here. I often hear the argument of, well, I'll just get people to help me with my game. Well, here's the other thing. You have to remember that these artists that you are potentially trying to hire to help you with your game for free, they want these jobs. They want the job at Blizzard or Epic or Riot. Why do they want the job? Well, because this particular industry is a career of passion. People want to do this work. They love doing the work. And so their ultimate dream is to go work on Overwatch or World of Warcraft or League of, whatever it is, because they've been playing that game their whole life. So if you think you're going to get them to help you with your game for free without disclosing what your game is, with no track record and no equity, you're going to have to come up with some kind of sales pitch, right? And you're going to have to potentially rethink the idea that you're not going to disclose what you're working on unless you're paying full value or some other value. Now, are you going to have to pay these full prices? Maybe not. My experience is, generally speaking, in a freelance world, I never really hit numbers quite this high, but it can get high. I would say easily 9K. Yes, definitely. But it's something to think about, just to kind of give yourself a frame of reference for what you might be going into. The other thing is, the people that you're trying to hire, all of these senior or principal artists or whatever, they know They say something like 9 out of 10. I don't know how true this stat is, so don't quote me on it, but 9 out of 10 businesses fail. I would bet you that it is far greater number of games that fail, startup games that fail, and even like full on legit 100% funded games. How many of those games fail? So for an artist that you're going to approach and you say, I've got this great idea, I need your help, you're going to get equity in my game and all these kinds of things, in their mind, they're thinking more than 9 out of 10 of these things fail. So they're absolutely, unless they are just independently wealthy or you've sold them on how amazing your game is, you're going to have to pay them. Or you're not going to be able to get consistent work, because making games is not just about the vision and the idea. It is also an Iditarod of endurance to get to the finish line. So that wraps up our character art example. So let's switch over and take a look at how we might take a look at this exact same framework for engineering. All right, for engineering, we're going to be approaching this a little bit differently. So let's just throw up our salaries and job ranges. So we've got a senior tools engineer at Blizzard for $173,190 a year, a senior gameplay engineer at Blizzard for $143,877. Interesting to note that a tools engineer, generally the range is higher than a gameplay engineer. My guess, this is a guess, and my engineering friends can throw down in the comments down below, is there are more people who want to be gameplay engineers than tools engineers. It's something to keep in mind when you're looking at different career paths, all right? Senior software engineer at Riot Games, I don't remember what the exact discipline, you'll have to check out the website, but it was $219,950 a year. And a senior tools programmer at Epic Games, $266,302 a year. And each of the monthlies is there as well, $14,000, $11,000, $18,000, and $22,000. Why did I break this down by month? I'm breaking this down by month, generally speaking, because I think engineering tasks are a little bit more difficult to deliver a single character, right? You're going to be working on a feature with a pretty experienced engineer. They might be able to tell you how much it costs for a specific feature, but I would not be surprised if it's a monthly, a daily, or an hourly rate type thing. And so I wanted to give you an idea of what it might cost to hire an engineer of a senior level onto your project. Now, is it going to cost you this much? Once again, I would put forth that anybody you're trying to hire, you're probably wanting to hire a good quality engineer. And in a lot of cases, all of those good quality engineers are working at their dream jobs, hopefully. Maybe not all of them, but hopefully. So not only that, if they're already working at their dream job, maybe they're trying to work a side gig to help pick up some extra money so they can buy that new favorite snowboard they want, or whatever the heck it is. You've got to look at their opportunity cost. If they're making $14K a month at their day job, they're going to forego family, their hobbies, whatever else it is, for how much money to help you out with your project. And once again, we get back in the exact same things I was talking about when we were discussing the character art setup example. You're going to have a solid pitch. They're going to have to believe it's going to go, etc., etc., etc. Now, if you look at these ranges, we've got 11, 14, 18, 22. Let's just say the midpoint is somewhere around 16-ish. I haven't actually done the math, but that's basically where we are from a senior engineer standpoint. It's also worth mentioning, notice the difference between actually, let's just do the math real quick. Let's take, roughly speaking, let's take 12 plus 14 plus 18 plus 22, divide that by 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it's worth, 16 and a half. I wasn't too far off. So it's worth noting, for those of you that are considering careers in game dev, look at the difference between what an engineer makes and what a character artist makes. I'm not making these numbers up. These are the published salary ranges on each of these companies' websites. Now, I've picked some pretty solid companies, okay? I'm looking at our Blizzard. I try to throw in where I could some smaller shops as well, just to give you an idea. But right now it's very tough. A lot of shops, with everything that's going on in the industry right now, it's really tough to find jobs in each of these niches to get an example that is kind of cohesive. So just finding senior engineers at smaller companies is a hard position to find. So I'm just doing the best I can just to kind of give you all ballparks. But this is something to keep in mind as you're looking and kind of deciding what kinds of things you want to go into. So that wraps up our engineering example. This is particularly interesting for people who are, a lot of times I get this question for people who are either funding their own game, or they've done like a Kickstart or Indiegogo, and then they didn't realize they kickstarted their game. They didn't realize how much it was going to cost for them to hire an engineer to potentially help them. So something to keep in mind. With that, let's talk quickly about animation, and then we'll wrap it all up. All right, here we go. All right, so here's our last category and wrap up. We've got a senior gameplay animator at PlayStation making $173,000 a year, or $3,326.80 a week. 3D animator at Blizzard, $69,000 a year at $1,326 a week. 3D animator at Psyonix, $74,000 a year, $1,422 a week. And a mobile game 2D animator at QD Staff, $87,500, and that's $1,682 a week. And yourself at $28.34 if you were working by the week, $1,133.60. Now, specifically with animation, I opted to go with the week because, one, I generally, when I was hiring people, I often would pay them either a day rate or a weekly rate. So that's kind of what I was used to when I was hiring animators. The other reason is my experience as a character animator, we generally worked in feet, and you could kind of figure out, depending on the production and the quality bars you were hitting, I would say most of the time, depending on the number of characters in a shot, film animators were working in about 4 seconds a week. And I would talk to my friends in games, and we were all astounded they were doing 19 seconds a week. So those are your two frames of reference for like somewhere in there. That's your range, but somewhere between 4 and 19 seconds a week. It's hard for me to guess how much actual game mechanics and abilities that you are going to be able to get animated in a week's worth of an animator's time. I'm gonna ask those of you that are watching that are gameplay animators, how much of an ability set, how many ability sets can you get through in a week, right? I know it depends on complexity, number of moves and everything like that, but just ballpark it for people so they can kind of get a guesstimate. But my overall point is, with these numbers, that will give you an idea of about what it might cost to hire an animator to help you out with your project. Now, interestingly enough, once again, notice the salary differences depending on the job positions. There are a lot of people who really want to be character animators. Now, there is a specific other reason why I wanted to do animation and character art. In addition to everything we talked about so far, I thought it might be interesting as part of this video to do two little add-on videos. So here's what we're going to do. Just as a case study, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go hire a bunch of artists on Fiverr and see what we get. And specifically, what we're going to do is we're going to hire, and I'm not going to be doxing anybody, none of those things. This is actually just a case study to see where we get with how much money and what quality bar. I'll review everything independently. We'll go over it together. I'll show you what you're looking at, because I think part of the context is understanding where we are as an industry in the difference between what the quality bar, the speed, the reliability, etc., depending on where you're getting work done and how much you're paying for it. So the difference between paying $100 for a model versus thousands of dollars for a model, what does that look like? Now, so in this particular case, we're going to be doing that in the context of two things. We're going to be doing that one in the context, and this is why I included a 2D animator in this one. We're going to be doing that in the context of animating a logo. And then the other one is we're going to be doing that in the context of modeling a character. So when all of that work is done, we've had a chance to review it all. I'll be posting those videos as add-ons to this video. But in the meantime, let me know what you think about everything we talked about today. Hopefully I've given you a lot to chew on and a couple of different ways to potentially think about and frameworks to back into what might be a fair value, or at least, at the very least, kind of put some ceilings on where top tier talent is working versus where you're coming from, your budgets, your planning, costs, etc. So as always, all feedback's welcome. I'm sure this one's gonna be a lot of fun. My name is Kevin. Thanks for being the best part of this venture, the community. It was the community who helped come up with the ideas for this video. As always, we have tips down below. We have the Patreon. We have live streams each week where we go, most of the time we go over Unreal Engine tutorials and game dev stuff. Sometimes they're lectures, but a lot of times it's just in editor work, etc. And as always, I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Take it easy.